They fined me $200 for snow tracks on a sidewalk I shoveled for free. Not my driveway, not my property, a shared path the whole neighborhood uses. So I did something the HOA board never saw coming. I parked the only snowplow in a 3-mile radius, sat down with a hot coffee, and watched Mother Nature bury their self-righteousness under 4 feet of fresh powder. Their essential access road, the one they bragged about maintaining, completely disappeared overnight. And when 47 residents couldn't leave for work the next morning, they called me. Every single one of them. Stay until the end, because the board president's reaction is something I still think about every time it snows. If you've ever dealt with a power-tripping HOA, smash that subscribe button because this is Neighbor Wars HQ, and we're just getting started. Let me paint you the full picture because context matters when we're talking about HOA overreach. I live in a small planned community that looks like a catalog cover in October and turns into a bureaucratic nightmare by December. We got a single paved road connecting our 52 homes to the main highway. One road, one artery, one choke point that, in winter, becomes the difference between getting to work and calling your boss with a story they've never heard before. Now, I'm a contractor. I own a mid-sized commercial snowplow, not a little residential blade, but a real truck-mounted unit that can move serious snow in a serious hurry. For 3 consecutive winters before this incident, I plowed that shared road as a favor. No charge, no contract, just a neighbor helping neighbors because the HOA's contracted plowing service was, and I say this charitably, chronically, embarrassingly, dangerously late. Last year, they showed up 14 hours after a blizzard. 14. People missed work, a woman with a medical appointment had to call an ambulance, and a school bus couldn't get into. Pick up the kids. So I stepped in. I built my schedule around it. I'd be out by 5 a.m. after any significant snowfall, clearing the road before most people had poured their first cup of coffee. Neighbors waved, thanked me, and left cards in my mailbox at Christmas. The HOA board said nothing, not a thank you, not an acknowledgement, nothing. Fine. I wasn't doing it for them. Then came November of last year. First real snowfall of the season, maybe 6 inches overnight, wet and heavy. I'm out there at 4:45 a.m. like clockwork. I clear the main road, I get the cul-de-sac turnaround, and out of pure habit, I do a quick pass on the pedestrian path that connects our section to the community mailbox cluster. It's not technically required of me. Nobody asked, but people use it, elderly residents, parents with strollers, kids walking the bus stop, so I just did it. 3 days later, a certified letter arrives at my door. From the HOA board, a formal notice of violation. My plow had left track impressions and surface scarring on the shared pedestrian walkway, which apparently violated Community Covenant Section 4, subsection 12b. No motorized vehicles shall operate upon designated pedestrian infrastructure. Fine, $200, payable within 30 days. I read it twice. I call my neighbor Linda, who's been here 22 years and knows every political current in this community. Her exact words were, "Oh, honey, that's Margaret. She's been looking for a reason since you didn't show up to the budget meeting." Margaret, the board president, had apparently decided that my Goodwill plowing was some kind of unauthorized commercial operation. The fact that I charged $0 was, according to her interpretation, irrelevant to the violation. I wrote a polite but firm response, documented with photos of the path both before and after I plowed it, showing that the surface scarring was nothing more than shallow tire impressions in ice that melted within 36 hours and left the path in better condition than it had been before. I also included, for reference, photos from 3 prior winters showing the path had never been cleared by anyone else. Margaret responded with a terse 2-sentence email. The fine stood, and future unauthorized vehicle use of pedestrian paths will be subject to escalating penalties. Here's where I made the decision that I want to be very clear about. I didn't act out of anger at the moment. I gave a full week. I talked to my wife. I consulted the community covenants myself, all 47 pages of them, looking for any clause that obligated me to plow anything. There was none. My plowing was, legally and contractually, entirely voluntary. I also confirmed that the HOA's contract with Polar Peak Plowing Services, their official vendor, remained active. They were still being paid. I was just supplementing because they were consistently failing. So I made a simple, legal, fully documented decision. I would stop. I sent the board a brief, professional email stating that due to the recent citation, I would be discontinuing all informal snow removal services effective immediately. I paid the $200 fine not because I agreed with it, but because I wanted zero loose ends. I wanted my position to be airtight. And then I waited. The weather forecast for the following weekend showed a major system moving in. 8 to 12 inches expected. Strong winds. Low overnight temperatures. Friday night, I double-checked the weather. Still tracking. Saturday morning, I watched the snow start falling at 6 a.m. from my kitchen window, coffee in hand, plow truck parked in my driveway. My wife looked at me. I looked at her. She said, "You're really not going out there, are you?" I said, "Polar Peak has a contract. They can handle it." She laughed the kind of laugh that means she knew exactly what was about to happen. I paid the $200 fine not because I agreed, but because I wanted zero loose ends. What came next was entirely their own making. By 9 a.m. Saturday, we had 5 inches on the ground. By noon, Polar Peak had not shown up. By 2 p.m., we had 10 inches and the wind was building drifts against anything vertical fences, parked cars, mailboxes, and the one single road connecting 52 households to the outside world was completely, solidly buried. The text started at 2:30 p.m. First from my next-door neighbor, Dave. "Hey man, when are you going out?" I replied, "Not today, Dave. Got cited last time." His response was a long pause followed by a string of emojis I won't repeat. Then from Karen 3 doors down, "Is something wrong with your truck?" I said the truck was fine. She said, "So you're just not plowing?" I said, "Correct." Another long pause. By 4 p.m., I had 11 text messages. By 6 p.m., 23. People had tried calling Polar Peak, and their line went to voicemail. Someone called the county road crew, and they confirmed they only maintain public roads, not private community drives. The board had apparently not provided anyone with an emergency contact number, a detail that aged very poorly by Saturday evening. Then came the knock on my door at 7:15 p.m. I opened it to find Margaret, the board president herself, standing on my porch in a parka, snow to her shins, expression somewhere between fury and desperate humility. Behind her were 2 other board members, one of whom I had genuinely never seen before in 3 years of living here. She said, and I am quoting this from a note I wrote immediately afterward, "We need you to plow the road. People have emergencies. This has become a safety situation." I told her I understood the urgency and I genuinely cared about the safety of our neighbors. I also told her that I had received a formal citation for unauthorized vehicle use on community property, and that I was therefore unable to operate my vehicle on community property without written authorization, and here's the part she didn't see coming, without a formal reversal of the $200 fine and a written acknowledgement that my previous 3 years of snow removal had been a community benefit and not a violation of any covenant. I handed her a printed 1-page document I had prepared. Because I had prepared it. Because I knew. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she looked at me. Then she signed it. Right there on my porch in the snow at 7:30 p.m. on a Saturday night, with a board quorum of 2 other witnesses present. The fine was reversed. The acknowledgement was signed. And I went out and cleared the road in 40 minutes. She signed it on my porch, in the snow, at 7:30 p.m., because she had absolutely no other choice. The aftermath of that Saturday changed things in our community in ways I genuinely did not expect. By Monday morning, 12 residents had formally requested a special HOA meeting. By Wednesday, that request had grown to 29 more than a majority of households. The meeting happened 2 weeks later, and it was, by every account I've heard, one for the record books. Margaret resigned from the board at the end of that meeting, not under pressure, or so she said, but citing a desire to focus on other priorities. 2 other board members did not seek re-election when their terms ended in February. The new board's first official action was to formally establish a neighbor assistance recognition program and to retroactively document my 3 years of voluntary plowing as a community service contribution. which in a small but meaningful way actually affects my community standing score under the covenants. Polar Peak's contract was not renewed. The community hired a local company run by a guy 2 streets over who has his own plow, and the board had the good sense to also negotiate a formal, compensated backup agreement with me at my standard commercial rate, with a clear scope of work and zero ambiguity about which surfaces I'm authorized to clear. We haven't had a single access issue since. Now here's what I want you to take from this, because this isn't just a funny story, though I'll admit it is a little bit funny. When you do something generous and someone tries to weaponize it against you, the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop doing the generous thing. You don't argue. You don't escalate. You don't post angry flyers. You just remove the thing they were taking for granted and let reality do the explaining. The snow didn't care about Robert's Rules of Order. It didn't care about subsection 12b. It just fell and fell and fell, and in doing so, it made my argument better than I ever could have. If this story hit different, I need you to do 3 things right now. First, smash that like button, because the YouTube algorithm is the HOA of the internet, and we're going to fight it together. Second, subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ if you haven't already, because I have a backlog of stories that make this one look tame, including the guy who redirected his sprinkler system onto a neighbor's driveway for 6 months over a fence dispute, and the woman who legally purchased the one parking spot her HOA needed to expand their clubhouse, and then just didn't sell it. Third, drop your HOA horror story in the comments below. The best one gets featured in next week's video. I read every single comment. I screenshot the wildest ones, and I genuinely love hearing that other people have survived the peculiar madness of living under a homeowners association. Until next time, stay warm, know your rights, and if they fine you for doing them a favor, park the plow. Trust the process. Let it snow.